They're both 18 years of age. One gets popped for drinking alcohol. One gets popped for possession of marijuana. They're both found guilty. The kid that got alcohol, he can still get scholarships and grants. He can still get into college. The kid that got the marijuana, not so much. He gets put to the bottom of the pile. So, and when they passed I-502, what was the most abused drug by teenagers in our state? Marijuana. What has it done since then? Read the healthy youth surveys. Skyrocketed. It's very acceptable in the youth. Here's the thing about marijuana that bothers me. Most all of you in this room, if you smoke marijuana, you're going to get high, but it's not going to have any negative impact on your brain because your brains are all developed. Your brain doesn't finish developing until you're almost 25 years of age. The last part of your brain to develop is the frontal lobe of your brain. The frontal lobe is your decision-making part of your brain, and that's why all teenagers are stupid. It's why you were stupid when you were a teenager, because you just didn't think things through, okay? So now they're taking on a drug that's inhibiting that development, which means they're going to make more stupid decisions later on. That's the problem I have with marijuana. Now, the other thing, if you read, and like I said, at one time I had a stack of paper in my office that high on the pros of marijuana, and that, again, marijuana. And every subject, you can, depends on which paper you want to pull out. I can defend either side. But the reality is, our youth are the ones that are suffering, and that's our leaders of tomorrow. And that's what I'm concerned about. And we're having a tough time in a lot of professions filling the gaps right now because of this process. Any other questions before I go to the next slide? Yes, ma'am.
Is it true that the county is restricted by law on how many beds they can have for folks who need them for substance abuse? I presume
16, federally.
That's the federal law for the whole county?
Mm-hmm. And Candy Hart Anderson's working on that. The other thing, she brought up mental health. I was on the bandwagon and presented when they were going to do the mental health facility, and it was going to be down on Ash Way in Linwood. But there was a whole bunch of people, or there was several groups against it, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And then it wound up getting moved up to Smoky Point, and I think it was a 50-bed site. And then it was going to be 75, and I think it's 125 now. Is that what it is? And it's building, and that's going to be a huge asset for us. But what I thought was really funny, in a very, very sad way, is I went to the Everett Library on one of the presentations for this, and the people that spoke against it were all suits. You know, three-piece suits, nice tie, all of that. And I go, what the hell? Why are they against this? So after the meeting was over, I went over and go, who are you? What are you doing? They run a facility in King County. And they have so many beds. And they enjoy having a line outside the door. And they didn't want that line to go away. And maybe they'd have empty beds. And I share that with you because the marijuana industry, the heroin industry, the cocaine industry, the drug industry, all of it is about one thing: money. Nobody gives a damn about their neighbor anymore. And that's the problem. I grew up in this county. I grew up out here between Snohomish and Monroe. I went to school out there in a 3-room schoolhouse. First, second, third grade in one room, fourth, fifth, and sixth in another. And if you were dumb and stupid in class, you shoveled coal. As a 5th grader, probably even as a 4th grader, I shoveled my fair amount of coal. Can you imagine that happening today? If you kid went to school and he got sent down to shovel coal and he went home and told his mom, my God, the school district would be buying him a new house and a new bus and a vacation house somewhere. we've lost our focus. The other thing I had as a kid growing up is we had these, what they call Grange halls. And every weekend there was a funeral or a marriage, or Grandma Elma made way too much spaghetti and put it out on the hotline, and everybody went down because she made good spaghetti and had a party. We don't do that anymore. A lot of us don't even know who our neighbors are. And we as law enforcement, remember I told you about stuff that we in law enforcement had done that had been a negative? Here's another thing. We in law enforcement wanted to get pay raises. And like Eric here, what are you doing? Well, people call, we come. Well, how many people called you? I don't know. Okay, so we developed this system called 911. What are you reporting? And we can track all this stuff. And then we run into somebody and they say, hey, you know, Pat, somebody stole my motor. Call 911. Call 911. Everything was call 911. And so what happened, me as a law enforcement officer and you as a public, this is what's happened. We've got farther and farther apart. When I was a patrol officer and working out in East Snohomish County, I had 40, 50, 60 kids on probation myself. You know, you can't do that anymore. But this is one of the things that happened. But we were able to justify our workload. We were able to show numbers. Had this many burglaries, this many car prowls, this many this, this many that. Next slide. Okay, here you have glass pipe. I don't know if you can see it or not. Sometimes it'll just be a ink pen tube. Another pipe at the bottom. This far lower right corner, this is the same woman. I think that's 7 years or 6 years apart in booking photos. From the first time she got popped with methamphetamine to the last time. And here's another deal we did. This is so stupid. I look back at it and I go, how? I could have been so dumb. We had these youth mess summits in Everett. We used to bring in thousands of kids from all the school districts. And we talked to them about the dangers of meth and da-da-da-da-da. And the message you send is important, but what's more important than the message you send?
The message they hear.
They hear. So, we have this gal, we had this another gal, we had 11 pictures of her. Rode hard and put away wet. I mean, she was ugly, right? Meth ugly. So, she got cleaned up. And all the people that she was working with, she was a nice gal. They really liked her. And so they went to her and they said, whatever her name was, would you go to this youth meth summit and would you talk to them and tell them the dangers of meth? She said, yeah, I'd really like to do that. I'd be proud to do that. So, okay. But she more said, hey, yeah, proud to do that. She didn't have any teeth, okay? And I'll do over here, you do that, I'll talk over there, whatever you want. Now, who the hell's going to understand anything she says, right? So, they all got together and said, I know what we'll do. We'll get her speech therapy. Somebody else said, I know a dentist, I think we can get her some teeth. Hey, I know somebody, I think we can get her a nice dress, and we'll get her hair and her fingernails done, and we'll do all this. And they did. And she got up in front of all these kids and made a powerful message of her life and how it went through. The aftermath, I was standing back in the corner and a bunch of gals were back and go, yeah, but look at her now. She looks good. You can survive. That was what they received. So you got to be careful. Next. Marijuana, I've been through that diatribe. And yeah, move on. Next slide. This is your fentanyl. Again, powder form, black tar, same needles, same spoons, same apparatus as any other opiate. And next slide. This is the important one. This is the Good Samaritan law that we got changed. So if somebody tips over and you're at a party, you can call 911 and the cops will come and they'll render aid to that person and they're not going to arrest everybody. But if there's a kilo of heroin sitting on the table, yeah, something's going to happen. Next slide. Naloxone, Narcan. It's the nasal spray. We have 800 people now. Eric, 800. And I'm going to get more, Eric. I'm on the.
And our crime rate's gonna go up and we're
Yeah,
just
I
gonna
know.
spend more money.
I'm going to tell everybody it came right out of Eric's pocket. I think we've applied Narcan 60 times and we've had 54 saves. Okay? And again, I understand Eric's deal. I don't agree with it. And I won't go down that road. I am the starfish guy. I don't know if any of you have ever heard the starfish story. I'll tell you real quick. It's about the young man and woman laying on the beach, having a good time in the sun. And they look down and here's this old guy, hopefully older than me, walking down the beach and he's bending over and he's bending over and he's doing this and he's doing this. And this young kid goes, what the hell's he doing? So he gets up and he walks down over the crest of the beach and he looks up and down. And here's all these starfish laying on the beach. And he walks up to this old man and he's picking up starfish and he's throwing it back in the ocean. And the kid goes, oh man, what are you doing? So I'm throwing starfish back in the ocean because they're going to die. He looks down, there's millions of these starfish. He says, you can't make a difference. And you can see it hits the old man. It really strikes him. He looks up and down the beach. He looks at the kid. He looks at the ground. He looks down the beach. He bends over. He picks up a starfish. He looks at it. And he throws it in the water and he says, I made a difference to that one. And that's my thought. That's how I operate. And that's how I try to serve you. And that's how I try to serve the men and women in uniform that work in this community. One of my major things in everything that we do, we need to be able to draw a line between our action, manpower you're talking about, and making a difference for the men and women that wear a uniform, and we cut their calls for service. And Narcan and naloxone does do that, believe it or not. Next slide. The one you've been waiting for. So, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
One that Narcan, I was on the news, so I don't know if it was national or local, and they were saying that in some schools, in an interstate school somewhere, they were actually teaching children how to administer this.
Yeah.
So when they were home, if something happened, they could use it on their parents or whoever was there. Is that something that's happening here?
We haven't got that far yet. One of the places that we are headed is to start instructing people that are getting out of jail how to use it. And you'll see the billboards up and down along I-5 and the different, if you go on the website, you can find the pharmacy that you can go to and get Narcan. And one of the things about, do you carry Narcan, Eric?
No, hell no. You know
Okay.
that.
I'm going to tell you something, Eric, and I hope it doesn't happen to you. But I know it's happened to some others. If I were you, I would get you Narcan. I carry Narcan. And when I'm going somewhere in my private vehicle, I take my Narcan with me because I never know who I'm going to run into. Now, when I retire here in the next year, I am going to move out of this area. Why? Because I want to go to Safeway and not have somebody turn around and run and leave all their food. You know, I want to be able to go to dinner and have a meal and not, you know, be pointed at and have people go run out the door. But the reality of the Narcan is, whether you like it or not, somebody in your sphere is going to overdose. And you might have the opportunity to save their life if you have it. It'll be your choice on who you apply it to. But I can tell you one thing for sure, for damn sure. If you don't have it, you can't help anybody. And you'll kick yourself in the ass, and justifiably so. And you'll remember that I told you. Yes, ma'am.
Never happened.
I've been hearing about it, but I haven't heard any place that we can learn how to use it. Is there going to be some classes available in, like, Mukilteo, for instance, how to use it?
If you email me, okay, and I will get somebody in contact with you that'll be doing a class. All the classes that I do, not that I put on, but that I'm involved with, are all for first responders or people who are in that. But for individuals like you, we'll have classes and make it happen. Because it needs to get out to the public. And here's the other thing, and I'll share this with you, Eric. One of the other old cops that I had that kind of attitude that you got, and I told him, I said, you know, the reality with fentanyl and W16, I think it is, the one I was talking about in Canada, and these other synthetic fentanyls that are coming down the highway, somebody could be exposed to this totally by accident. And here's the great thing about Narcan. You look at all the other drugs that are out there, you cannot overdose somebody on Narcan. You cannot have a negative impact on them on Narcan. If they're having a heart attack and they're dying, but you think they're having an opioid overdose and you shoot them up with Narcan, you're not hurting them, okay? So we have had many already in the United States accidental exposures to the drug. And it can be, and I know you think about this might shock you, but when you're going home tonight, you're probably going to see a marked police car and somebody like it's in the back of the room in a uniform that's driving that thing, right? And they could be coming by your house or in your area. And they could see a suspect car, because we deal with suspects, right? And what's the last thing a suspect wants to be caught with? Anything that's wrong, right? So what do? Suspects do two things with bad stuff. They either stuff it on their girlfriend, because they're not man enough to be responsible, or they throw it out the window. And then some kid walking home from school, or somebody else that's just out there picking up litter because they want their yard to look nice, accidentally exposed. I'm not trying to sell you on it because I could care less.
You're being disingenuous, but that's okay.
I was listening to a story recently on NPR, and they were talking about fentanyl, not just within the street drugs, but people that are buying discounted drugs, heart medications, diabetes drugs. They're
Yep.
finding it in that also.
Well,
It's
and we're-
not just the street.
We're also finding, I think they were 60 milligram oxys? I think we have 60 milligram oxys that were fake oxys. They didn't have anything in them at all, but they had taken a drop of fentanyl and put it on the pill. So you're getting a fake pill. And here's the thing, you mix the concoction up and it's in this vat, right? And then, I mean, is it consistent through, I mean, is this guy that good that he got it mixed up all the way through, right? So that drop, is that 40% fentanyl or is that 82.5% fentanyl? You know, who knows? So we have a lot of that going on. Yes, ma'am.
Well, where I'm thinking Narcan seems like it's the EpiPen for overdose use, if you will. But, and my EpiPens are, we all know, I carry 4, so that's $1,200 worth of EpiPens.
Which is ridiculous.
I can't afford to have a Narcan pen on hand. How does one acquire that? And is it cost
Well,
effective for those who would want to carry it?
The problem we have is Purdue Pharma. And like naloxone, when we got into this, I think our first batch of naloxone, I think I paid $32 a vial. And then in the next 8 months, because a lot of people started going to it, they up to almost, I think it was just under $200. And the EpiPens should go for about $35, but sometimes some places are up to $300. And it's for research and development later on. But it's Purdue Pharma being able to work through that process. And so Purdue Pharma that makes the Narcan is the same group that made the oxys that got our society hooked. I'll share this with you. You know, when you look at the oxy problem and you look at teenagers, what does every teenager, pretty much every teenager, have done when they're 16 to 18 years of age? They have it done at least once, maybe twice, some 3 times. Any idea? Wisdom teeth. Have your wisdom teeth taken out. And when you have your wisdom teeth taken out, they give you 30 oxys. Now, my youngest daughter, who just turned 21, I'll never forget, she came home this summer from her second year of college, and she had all 4 of her wisdom teeth taken out at once. And she got 30 oxys. So she's, and I said, yeah, bye, I'm going to work. My wife's with her. So I get home that night, how you doing? Oh, yeah, okay. Next morning I get up and leave, It's about noon, and my phone rings. And it's a text from my daughter. Dad, Mom took my oxys. I'm an adult. Tell her to give them back. And I said, no, you're an adult. You tell her. And so when my daughter got a hold of my wife and said, I want my oxys, my wife said, you know that program your dad runs? Yeah? You got to go down there because they're in the box. I got rid of them. Here's your ibuprofen and your Tylenol. You got to be involved. Yeah, you got to be involved. And the kids, what we found through our studies is the kids that got those drugs, some of them got addicted by them. Others took the pills and went to school and sold them. And then somebody else got addicted by them. One last question, because I'm over my time. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a comment. Our syringe exchange program in our county
Yeah.
it trains and gives out overdose kits to active users, so it puts it out there in the hands of users. Also, if you are a parent who has a kid living at home who's actively addicted, or a kid coming home who's been actively addicted, you can get a hold of us and we can figure out how to get you trained real quick and roll out some of your hand. We give the injectable side.
Here's one of the things that happens also. I wanted to cover real quick, because I talked about arresting people and putting them in jail. So we go out and arrest somebody, they got a warrant and whatever. Or maybe we pick them up on a drug charge and we put them in jail and they don't have any drugs. And so we have nursing staff at the jail. It costs $185 a day to have a heroin addict in jail. It's your dollars you pay them. So say they're there for 60 days and they serve their time, all of that, they're all done, good to go. And they go home. What's the first thing they do? Because they haven't went into treatment, they go back to using. And they go back to using how much? The same amount as they had before. And what happens? They die. There you go. So, and if we put them in jail and they die in jail, and here you have a drug addict, and these people don't use one drug, they use 7 or 8 drugs, okay? And so we dry them out of all their drugs. Their body, I mean, their livers and their kidneys and their heart, they're not working really good. They're not healthy people. And they die in jail. Then the sheriff gets sued for millions of dollars for loss of love and affection. So it's a balancing act constantly of who we put in jail and who we don't. Okay? You got anything you want to add before I go? I'll hang around for as long as you want. Eric, you get the last question before I leave the night. Other than that, everybody else is first. And I'm not being disingenuous, just being straightforward in my eyes. There you go.
Just quickly, this is part of the mayor's action agenda where she's really passionate about bringing community issues to the forefront for discussion. We bring in professionals who address those issues. And she's here, Mayor Gregerson. If you'd like to say a few words, George says.
I did program this to most of this. I got caught the last little bit, and I've been fascinated and entertained. So thank you. And also, it's a serious issue, so I appreciate all of you for coming out to hear more about that. And also, thanks to our Councilmember Chris Cook, who's here too.
Didn't want to put you on the front.
Yeah, that was great.
But we appreciate your passion for those types of issues that we need to discuss, that we have these concerns about, that we call the police for, and we wonder what is the law enforcement community doing to address these issues so we can either eliminate it or deal with it in a proactive way that's going to provide some resources to give people like that help. So we just appreciate you supporting the forum and creating the forum for us and allowing us to gather here tonight. So, and I want to show my appreciation for you all to take time in your day to be here this evening. I know you could be somewhere else, but it's important to have these types of discussions. It's important to know that law enforcement is moving forward to address these issues and for you to dialogue and connect with us because it's a partnership and we appreciate that partnership we have with our community. So it's good to do it together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the lady that's like really blue was talking about something, and but everybody back here thinks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said that our local syringe exchange program overdose kits to active users or their families. If you have an active user or one of your kids or your spouse or your friend, whoever you live with. So if there's an issue that you can't get one somewhere else, then I would say get a hold of them, get a hold of me. We can how we do that, figure out. Well, if you call or look at our Facebook page. The phone number is 425-258-2977. Or you can find us on Facebook at AIDS Outreach. And AIDS Outreach. Yeah, AIDS Outreach Project. And Snohomish County Services.
I got one more thing I want to cover, because this is the rubber bullet side that I didn't, and I got to cover it. Groups that we work with, there's a group called Hope Soldier, which Lindsay Grinke, who is a recovering heroin addict for the last 5 years. And she will go to houses. We have addicts there. One of the gals that I chased around for 3 years, when we finally got her into custody, she sat in jail for a month. Lindsay was able to get a sponsor to send her to treatment in Palm Springs, California. That was the closest place that we could get her in. She's been in treatment for going on 3 months now and is doing good. Another group that I work with is the House of Ministry from over in Snohomish, DJ Rob. And he has a truck, big van truck, that has washers and dryers in it. And he goes out and he treats the homeless people to washing and drying their clothes and gives them a little dignity. And I want to touch one thing on dignity on the homeless here in a minute. The Hand Up Project, who's a guy by the name of Robert Smiley. He's my go-to guy if we have somebody that's hiding in the woods and stuff. And Robert will go out, snag him up, and he'll drive them to get the voucher. And then he'll drive them over to get their identification card. And then drive them over to get their assessment. Because these people can't handle 2 instructions at once. They give up. It's too much. It really is. I work with the HOP Foundation on the Queens for a Day, which twice a year they bring in 30 women that are not homeless anymore and have been drug-free for 30 days. And they give them coaching and counseling, and they give them a nice dress, and they get their hair done and their nails done, and they get to stay in a hotel the night. And then the next day, businesses come in and help them develop resumes and show them how to apply for jobs and try to break that cycle. She also runs a thing called Esther's House, which is a drop-in center for homeless women in the city of Everett. And I go down and help out with some of the guys that probably shouldn't be hanging around. And also the Recovery Cafe, which takes people in and teaches them how to cook food and, get a restaurant job. And then I sit on the board, Project End Homelessness. Here's something I want to share with you, and I might make somebody mad, which I don't mean to. I apologize up front. These are just the facts of life. We have a lot of good people in this world, and in every city we have churches that hand out food and do nice things for the homeless. But we're human beings, and we have bodily human functions that happen. And so these homeless people will go to a church, and they will get a meal, and they'll get drinks, and they'll maybe get shoes, maybe they'll get a coat, maybe they'll get some other thing from the hours from 11 to 1. And then they close the doors, and then these people leave. And what I've found is these people are then forced into a situation where they have to move their moral compass because they have to urinate or defecate, and no business will let them in. So they have to go find a bush to go behind. And once they move that moral compass, and this is Pat Slack talking, I think, it's easier to steal that weed eater. It's easier to prowl that car. It's easier to steal that mail. And we help them down that road. Yes, sir.
So to touch on that real quick.
Speak up.
So to touch on what you were just reporting, when you were talking about the promise of Seattle, their project, is there something going on with Snohomish County?
There's some stuff going on. The city of Everett's getting ready to build some homeless places. One of the things, have you ever heard of the term low barrier housing? Low barrier housing is where you can get housing and you can get in and you can still use and live there. Seattle has utilized that as a way to get their real problem children off the street. And the problem children is the one I mean, that any one of you here in this room, if you were walking down the street and that person was walking at you, you would cross to the other side because they're aggressive. A lot of the homeless people that we deal with suffer from CTSD. Have you ever heard of CTSD? Do you know what PTSD is? Post-traumatic stress disorder? CTSD is continuing traumatic stress disorder. Continuing traumatic stress disorder can be brought on by these people in the back of the room or myself, just as showing up on the scene. Again, as I talked about earlier, they know we're not there to say hi. We're there to tell them to go do stuff. And we're met with this belligerence out of these people. I've taken the time to let these people gas or vent, and sometimes it takes a long time. And then they're just normal human beings. And they're ashamed. They're horribly ashamed of where they're at. They don't want to be there, but they can't get out of there. And they made horribly bad decisions when they were young. And because of those decisions, their driving privileges are suspended for the rest of their life in the state of Washington. And they have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. The most I've seen is $40,000 of civil fines hanging on their head. They can't go get a job at McDonald's. It's not because McDonald's won't hire them. It's because all their wages are going to get garnishing. So they did it to themselves. And most of them will admit it. They buried themselves. But we as a public aren't doing anything to give them a way out. Because take care of your fines and then you can get it. And we'll talk to you. Okay? Well, how are they going to take care of their fines? Except rob you, or you, or you, or all of us. It's really you look at the overall situation, it's a bad situation. And there is no easy answer. There is no silver bullet. I'm a silver BB. Tonight is the silver BB. And I want to close with this. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming here tonight.